call this meeting to order, the Cape Cod Gateway Airport Commission. Today is Tuesday, 13 December, and the time is 16:08 or 9. Take your pick. 8, thank you. Hey, a roll call, please.
Chairman Griffin.
Here.
Vice Chair Flores.
Here.
Clerk Lau.
Here.
Commissioner Earworth is absent. Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner DeGeorge.
Here.
And Commissioner Gio is absent.
Gior.
How do you
Gior.
Gio.
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 It's hard G, E, long O.
Gio.
G-I-O-U-D, right?
Yeah. Okay, Chris, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Yes, sir. Ready?
Ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you much. Okay, according to this, we have no minutes this meeting. We have 3 people in the gallery, Chris, Carol, Bob. This is open for public comment. ID yourself.
Okay,
and say hi.
I'm Christine Greeley. I live in West Yarmouth. I had not really talked about this before, but it's now happened a second time. I have very rarely, if you take a look at the records over the years, ever filed a complaint about flights or overflight. And I did a while ago because of one that literally came up Glenwood Street from the west, from the harbor, and made a left-hand turn, north turn, over my house to then approach the airport. And at the time, I was then sent a graphic that said that this plane had flown in directly from over Lewis Bay, straight into the airport. And I thought, well, that's a little odd, and I left it at that. Recently, within the last several months, I filed another complaint because of almost exactly the same situation with the plane, and that's the only reason I would ever complain, is that it was so far off track in terms of how things come, from basically coming from the harbor and coming up Glenwood Street and then making the left-hand turn over me. I filed it again, and again, I got a graphic that showed the plane as having come in directly in from Lewis Bay. So I'm raising the question at this point, given this has happened to me twice in the last year or so, in terms of the accuracy of the recording that materials that are taking place, the GPSs, whatever that is happening, because as I said, I probably haven't made more than 3 complaints in the last 10 years, and the fact that these 2 were so far off, and the only reason that I made them was because the planes were in such unusual flight patterns, and to then have it come through to me that they were coming straight in from basically Great Islands directly, north into the airport, was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So I don't know what's going on, but it's something very, very strange, and I just feel like I needed to comment, particularly after the second experience. I thought the first one was some kind of an anomaly or something, but the fact that this has now happened a second time is very, very strange. Thank you.
We'll look into that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll take a look at that and
Thank
see
you.
what's going on with the flight tracking system, see if
Yeah.
it's all for any reason.
Just curious,
Thank you.
with these single engine, multi-engine, do you have any sense of what it was?
I don't even remember. I mean, I just, because things happen so quickly, you just kind of like, record the incident with the time. I tend to do more of the time and date so that they got something very accurate in terms of what's happened at the airport. I try to be very, very accurate about the hour and the minutes, kind of thing. So, thank you.
Glad to look
Take a
into it.
look.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or responses to Chris? Okay, hearing none more of that. Subcommittees, Finance, Commissioner Waddle, would you give us the
Sure.
update, please?
The Cape Cod Gateway Airport Finance Subcommittee held a meeting on December 6th via Zoom. The meeting was called to order at 8:32 a.m. The Commissioners Weil, Flores, and Bailey were present. We reviewed and approved the minutes of the April 19th and the May 3rd, 2022 minutes. I also took a moment to recognize the tragedy at the Falmouth Air Park and the aviators that were involved. They're known to me, to Matt, and a few others here. And I don't have any updates on that, but just it was a sad occurrence for the community. As far as old business, there was one thing that we were involved in that will be discussed at this meeting, which is F1122-3, review and approve the lease agreement by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and the Air Drug for hangar development on the east ramp. I won't go into the details because we're going to go over it again in this meeting. It was voted to be moved to this meeting for consideration. We got the financial updates, which I'm sure will be discussed at this meeting, and a little bit of an update on the electric aviation, and the meeting was adjourned at 9:26 a.m.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that Finance Subcommittee? Hearing none, I'd go to the Infrastructure and Marketing. Commissioner G. George, would you?
Okay, infrastructure and marketing, we tried to meet on Tuesday, December 6th, but due to some technical difficulties, we had to move it to Thursday, December 8th at noontime. Commissioners DeGeorge, Bearwith, and Gio were present, and the meeting was held via Zoom. We had no old business to discuss. New business, IN 1222-1, monthly update, airport business plan for fiscal year 2023. And some of the highlights were that management has come up with a new summary format that was presented to the commission that outlines the business plan goals and activities that management will be addressing. Also present was Chris Bostic, our project manager, who is overseeing some of the projects. During the meeting, we also discussed the RFP for marketing and communications manager's position, which hopefully will be posted by the end of this month. The next one was IN 1222-2, Airport Roundtable Update. Manager Service reviewed the memo sent to the Commission on the Airport Roundtable on air carrier meetings and initiatives, which Katie will probably go through today and discuss a little bit further. The other one was IN 1222-3, National Business Aviation Association Schedules and Dispatches Conference Travel Approval Letter, and that will be discussed and positioned for approval today at this meeting. Other than that, we went through some small updates, and the full updates will be given tonight at this meeting. With no other business being discussed, the meeting was adjourned at 12:59.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions regarding that meeting? Just a quickie, your mention of the praying up there at Falmouth where we, CAPA and did you happen to go to the CAPA?
I did not.
Okay, I couldn't either, so that must have been a little unpleasant, sad in a way. Okay, old business, we have none. New business, we've got a couple of agenda items, motions here. We have 1222-1, and Norm, would you please read that into the record?
All right.
The motion.
If I can put my glasses back on. This is COM 1222-1, the motion to approve the lease by and between Cape Cod Gateway Airport and Aloft Aviation Management LLC for 22,500 square feet of land on Mary Dunn Way intended for hangar and office development for use as specialized aviation service operation for a term of 20 years effective February 1st, 2023. The sponsor is the Finance Subcommittee, and it may be acted upon.
We have a second, please.
Second.
And discussion.
Sure.
Katie?
So we have a lease that was crafted between the airport's attorney and the airport management, and then Aloft Aviation. Both parties are in agreement to the lease that was seen by the finance subcommittee. The leasee intends to use the property in the following manner: for aircraft maintenance operations for groups 1 and 2 piston aircraft, for avionics or instrument maintenance operation, aircraft storage operator, aircraft rental, and flight training, which is a big hit for us in meeting a lot of our airport business plan goals. Occasional aircraft charter or aircraft management operations, and other commercial activities such as giving aerial flights and whatnot around the area. So with all of those types of uses, we constructed the lease so that it met the airport's minimum standards for square footage that would be needed for office space, for ramp space, hangar space, so we followed those guidelines. We do not have an exact design plan yet. We hope to see something from the lessee sometime mid-February for review. Our on-call team with Airport Solutions Group will be the reviewers of that plan to make sure that it meets our requirements, FAA requirements, and make sure that we're using the space appropriately and efficiently. The term of the lease is for 20 years. That's what the Airport Commission can approve. However, we do have a line item in there or an agreement in there that if they wanted to go for an option that goes beyond 20 years, they could do so. But they need to go in front of town council to request that, because this body can only approve of 20 years. So that is in the lease. Ballpark square footage is about 22,500 square feet. It's going to be very similar to other leases that we have talked to. One of the things that we want to do is entice people to come to develop at the airport. And Paula, sorry, but I do have one graphic just showing the location of the site. This is what we call the hexagon hangar. This will be a development right behind that hexagon hangar, and it will be right in alignment with our new roadway, the extension of Mary Dunn Way, which really, I think, opened up the entire property for further development. It's really, we're starting to get a lot of calls now for developing hangars. I do have to say thank you to ASG. They were the design team that designed Mary Dunn Way extension. Their team was on hand as project managers for the project. It's about 98% complete, which is great. We have some long lead items that still need to be addressed, but anyway, that has opened up the door for us to be able to develop in this area. The way we've constructed the lease and going forward for other leases, we'll do the same thing. We want to entice people to develop on the airport. We have a structure that's a three-pronged structure. The first phase is a reduced rate due to construction. The first 24 months is a discounted rate for the lessee. The second phase of that is called the full operational phase, and that takes place from years 3 through 7, and that is additional discounts, not as much as the first 24 months. And then the full operational phase takes into account the fair market value for the property, and we also embed in the lease that will be appraised to ensure that we're meeting fair market value. So that takes place, that last final phase is years 8 through 20. In years 8, 13, and 18 is when we will get a fair market value review to make sure that we're still in alignment with what we should be charging going forward. The base rent will have a 3% increase annually, or consumer price index, whichever is greater. That has been embedded into the lease. In addition, any lessees or sub-lessees that the tenant has, they will be required to pay 3% of gross for their activity on the airfield. And the lessee has started working with Baxter Nye Engineering. They have them on board for the hangar development project and for the design plans for mid-February. Airport management will take a look at the design plans with Airport Solutions Group, and we'll make any comments or notations that need to be changed if there are any, and then we'll come back to the full commission for approval of the final plan. Any comments or questions?
I would just like to say that Eric is known to me, which I've said at several meetings before, I first met him when he was a flight instructor at Pilgrim Aviation when they started to try to operate down here. He then operated a flight school out of the Air Cape Cod building, and I know him casually. At that time, he talked about his desires of what he wanted to do, to build a business on the airport grounds. Since that time, I have not talked to him about this at all, but he's always had an interest in promoting general aviation on this airport. So he has made a presentation before, I believe, not about this specifically, but to the commission.
Thank you. Just a mention for anybody that hasn't had a chance to take a tour up the new Mary Dunn Way. It has taken an area that was really uninviting, and it's turned into, it's really quite nice back there now, and it's, if you haven't seen it, take a look. But you guys on your design seem to have worked out real nice. So thank you. Anything else on this? Any other discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor signify, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it's unanimous. Thank you. Next item, 1221-2, it's a motion. Joe, would you read that in,
Sure.
please?
COM 1222-2, motion to approve the travel letter for airport staff to attend the National Business Aviation Association Schedulers and Dispatchers Conference in January 2023. Sponsor is Infrastructure and Marketing and may be acted upon.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second discussion, Katie?
Sure. A recent request by the town manager was that airport management was asked to supply a travel approval letter for various conferences and seminars that we're attending. So the fiscal year 2023 budget was approved by the Airport Commission, and in that 2023 budget, we had several conferences that were highlighted, one being the National Business Aviation Association Schedulers and Dispatcher Conference that's coming up. We also had included in there air carrier meetings, and that was part of meeting the business plan goals, which is why it went to the infrastructure subcommittee to make sure are these still conferences that we want to go to, still meeting the airport business plan goals, and not necessarily something that went to the finance subcommittee since it's already been seen by them. Airport management went to marketing infrastructure for this approval. And we took a look and we provided them with background about the conference and what it's all about and the purpose of going to the conference. Typically, airports attend these types of conferences so that they can connect with schedulers and dispatchers that are bringing jet aircraft and business aircraft to your facility. What is it that they need to be accommodated at your facility? It's a time for us to connect with those folks and get a good idea of what they need at our airport to make them want to come here, utilize this facility, what's going to make it easier for them to come and go into this facility. Typically, airports will be exhibitors at an event like this. We've been told by many of our on-call folks, engineering planning, as well as some other airports in Massachusetts and New England, that the first time you go to this conference, it's best just to go, look, see what type of displays are provided by other airports, understand what we would need to go next year as an exhibitor. But the first one is really just kind of sit, get to know some people, meet some folks, and make those connections through that program. So airport management will provide a post-event update of our event and of this conference when we return, and the request is for the commission to approve the letter. Any questions or comments?
Where is it this year, first one?
It's in Nashville at the end of January.
How many people usually attend?
I don't know. Do you know off the top of your head? Yeah, I'm not sure. I can find out for you.
Just curious.
It's probably an attending list from last year.
Highlight our renovated Pilots Lounge.
Well, that's one of the things that we would be doing as well, is just identifying what's changing, what's happening at Hyannis, you know, how we're trying to retrofit the facility to better accommodate them.
Yeah, I would only comment that from town's perspective, we're always looking at travel, especially out-of-state conferences. So we want to ensure that whenever we approve, that we get the ROI on it based on your opinion, when you come back and report on it. Because if this one doesn't work, maybe this one that works better. I'm not saying reduce the line on it, but find the right ones.
Right,
that
to
meet
go.
our needs.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anything else? Thank you, John. Hearing no other comments, call the question. All in favor signify, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, done. Report of special committees. No, not this month.
What's that?
We have two other items. We have two other items.
Oh, how did I miss that? Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, I was looking at the wrong page. So sorry, my apologies. 22-3, monthly update, airport business plan. Katie?
Sure, so we've changed the format a little bit with the request of the infrastructure subcommittee. We're providing more of a memo, and I sent it to you last week when we sent out the agenda. And the memo will just be a highlight of what activities we have worked on for each of the 4 separate goals of the business plan. So I'll start with our goal A, maximizing general aviation activity. Airport management has been working on a number of different items, one including the Cape Cod Gateway Airport Community Event Series. We modified it a couple of months ago. We brought this, our events plan to the infrastructure and subcommittee. And what we're really going to focus on is 2 big events that will occur in September. We are combining those events, so they're going to be back-to-back events for efficiency and for purposes of rental sponsors that will have, and expenses that will have for both events. So the Southeastern Massachusetts Aviation Career Fair will be for our students on Friday, September 22nd. And on the Saturday, the day after, will be a great day for the Gateway, a tribute to the spirit of aviation in our military, and that will be on the 23rd. I think there's some synergy there by having the event back to back like that. There are a lot of sponsors that we would have in kind for that type of event. There are a lot of vendors who will be at the event for the students that may also want to be interested or may be interested in exhibiting at the Great Day event on the following day. The other thing that we noticed is when we had the events separated by 1 month, our request for military static displays, they would only basically commit to 1 day. So it makes sense to be able to coincide those events, or at least have them back to back, so maybe you can get some overlap. They'll be here for 2 days and then be gone. So that was another reason why we did that. The NBAA Schedulers and Dispatchers Conference, we will be going to that. We will showcase the airport operations remodel for what we have for graphics, and then we'll showcase Mary Dunway Extension, highlighting future general aviation development and opportunities for that. The discount program, fuel program would also be highlighted that event. Just recently, we had the commission sign the Everest contract for this following year. NetJets, I'm working on their contract right now, and we have a new contract with Evo that I sent to them last week. So hopefully we'll get that moving forward. So we'll have 3 contracts in place. We're also working on a number of different land leases. You just heard about Aloft Aviation with their development of a conventional hangar along Mary Dunway. Like I said, the extension of Mary Dunway has helped us and has helped promote the airport for future aviation development. We have one gentleman that we're working with, another gentleman for a conventional hangar development on the 10 acres treed lot that we're looking at. We also have a helicopter company that have spoken with us on several occasions that come in here often. They're regulars that we see at the airport, but they're looking to have an additional space here at the facility. And then, of course, on Friday, we will be speaking with Massachusetts Air and Space Museum on their reuse of Air Cape Cod building and that lease. Projects in progress include the airport operations remodel, T-hangar redevelopment, and a continuation with Mary Dunway extension. I'll have Chris give an overview during the updates. We are working with our media, our marketing team to ensure that we have media coverage for the new facilities. They'll be working on a brochure or something to provide for the NBAA event. We also have developed more advertisement on our website for some properties that are not under lease yet to be able to advertise that. And then we are doing a lot with aviation education, so all of these items go towards Goal B. We're hosting the second high school aviation intern from Barnstable High School. A third will be starting in January from Monomoy High School. We have our scheduled events in September, and we also have other events that are coming up, such as a night in the terminal. We have a scout sleepover that we've already had one planning meeting with them, so that will be in March. And then, of course, we have our new tenants that are offering flight instruction in the Aviation Museum. So all of those items meet the goal of our goal A, which is to increase our general aviation and provide them or maximize the activity at the airport. For diversification of our revenue streams, we have been working on additional leases for vehicle parking. We have one new 3-year license that we just signed about a couple of months ago by this body with HMI for vehicle parking on the property. We are working through a lease with Suffolk Construction. They will be a 3-year license will take place. This was also approved by this body to work on the Cape Air project. The hospitals project. It's about a 3-year process for them. And then again, we're continuing with our advertisement on the website. In regards to regional transportation leader, although I would love to say that I had everything to do with JetBlue adding their LaGuardia service, I did not. I think that had a lot to do with some of our existing tenants that are on the field, so bravo to them for promoting the airport as well. But I will go over the airport roundtable and the discussions that we had at that event regarding air transportation and how we can move forward. We have been speaking quite intently with electric aviation providers who are advancing their vehicles for use in electric aviation. So that includes Archer and Beta. We also have had several conversations, and we set up monthly meetings with Cape Air, Archer, and Beta, so we continue the conversation in regards to electric aviation. We also submitted a grant with the help of MassDOT Aeronautics to receive funding to be able to do a study as well as implementation, again, to support electric aviation. In our last goal, enhancing the airport image and branding, we are in the process of creating a newsletter. It's under development by Judith Getz, who does our media and outreach. It will be a quarterly newsletter. We want to be able to at least make sure that the community has information about what we're doing on the airfield. It's a regular publication, so it will be on our website, it will be on social media. We'll list the community events in that publication as well. We've completed our sign for the Mary Dunn Way through the Mary Dunn Way project. We're working on the other signs to transition them over. I've already contacted the state to make modifications to the state highway signs that say Barnstable Municipal, transfer those over to Cape Cod Gateway Airport. And for the website redevelopment, we had to modify our page for airport PFAS, so we did that. That's up and ready. The airport environmental assessment has been added to the website, so any data, dates, public meetings, that's on the website. And then any information from the master plan is also there. Any questions or comments on the business plan items?
Just an observation. We have so many things going on in response to so many different events. Have we ever thought about sponsoring our own aviation industry conference, maybe a 1-day or a 2-day conference, something in the fall, something in the spring, that could focus on a particular aspect of the industry itself? Bring in a keynote speaker, have maybe 4 or 5 concurrent sessions. I think it would be tremendous publicity for us and to show people coming in what we have.
Yes and no. So I'll try to explain what we're looking at. So one of the things that we do have on the books right now is in May of 2024, we will be doing our own airport roundtable here. I'll explain the roundtable as the next item, but we'll be hosting one here at this airport, and that's going to be very important for us to showcase this facility, but also showcase Cape Cod. The events that we've tried to streamline for the Great Day for the Gateway in September, what Matt and I have come up with is a list of events for that day, the order of the day, and we will have various general aviation forums, workshops, and guest speakers that are focused on aviation, to draw some of the aviation, some of the pilots into this airport for that one-day event. So that kind of gets after what you're saying, and that would be something that we would do regularly every September. Then we have our Hangers and Hamburgers event series, which will also include some FAA safety seminars at those events. It would be, people would come in, grab a hamburger, but go and learn something about aviation. It may include fly-ins of different types of aircraft. We haven't solidified if we're gonna do that June, July, or August, but it will be in the summer months. And that will be to showcase something that people can come to that are enthusiasts, aviation enthusiasts, to come to those types of events. So that doesn't quite answer exactly what you were saying, but it's kind of similar to having a regular event.
No, I just think there's so many things going on, having been in that different aspect of national conferences. They're very easy to create. We have so many topics and so many subjects that we could easily create something on a particular theme. Make it a one-day or two-day, have an awards program. You can really be creative in recognizing whether it's the fledgling electrical aviation industry, or so we become known for something.
Yep, that's a good point.
Just a brainstorming idea.
We'll chat about what that might look like and come up with a few ideas and just bring it back to the commission. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Okay, thank you.
Airport Roundtable Update, 22-4.
So Airport Management attended the Airport Roundtable event. This was actually the second event that I've been to. It was in Huntsville, Alabama in November. The Airport Roundtable is a series that is dedicated to having a very small, intimate conversation. Only 50 people tops they'll allow at these events. To speak to a number of different airlines that are present at the event. I was sitting right next to American Airlines. On the other side of me was folks from JetBlue. So it's an opportunity for us to really just sit down and talk to these folks to see what will work and what may not work at Hyannis. But it also gives you a flavor of what's happening in the industry. Each airline gets up and they give a synopsis of what's going on in the industry. For us right now, when they start talking about what they're planning to do, it's at this point in time, we might not fit in some of their categories that they wish to see for growth, but we'll still work on continuing having those conversations with them. So real quick, I'll try to do this quickly. The state of the industry, one of the biggest things that they brought forward is that the cost of fuel and labor cost, salaries for pilots and staff and mechanics, and union costs are going to see about a 25% increase overall industry-wide, industry tickets because of those increases. So we will see that. Regional airlines will see an even higher uptick for the cost of a ticket on regional airlines. The low-cost carriers and ultra-cost carriers will be growing their fleets by about 280 aircraft between 2022 and 2024. That's pretty significant, and to see that growth. Of course, pilot shortages will still affect this growth, so I'm sure that the industry will start looking at what that pilot shortage looks like as they bring on more and more aircraft. Over the past several years, the average air carrier aircraft size has increased by about 35%. In 15 years, this has shown that it has significantly affected our market here in Hyannis.
Is that because the seats are small?
Hmm?
Is that because the seats are small?
No. Back in 2007, just to give you an example, 93 seats was the average. They're up in this year, 2022, by about 127 seats being the average. So the largest unserved market is Orlando and Sacramento. So there's a lot of folks that are looking at that market, a lot of airlines looking at that market. The good thing for us is low-cost carriers or ultra-low-cost carriers are the fastest growing sector of the airlines. So most of the growth has been to leisure stations, such as Orlando and Las Vegas, but they're starting to look at growth in other areas, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Newark, Bradley. We're seeing the growth by these low-cost carriers in those areas as well. The next stations to see an increase are airports outside of Florida and Nevada, so they're gonna start infiltrating the market, so we might see have some further conversations with them. None of the low-cost carriers or ultra-low-cost carriers were at this event, but they were at the previous event that I went to. Avello was at that event. They're at Bradley right now, providing service to Florida, so they were at that previous event. They're also looking at branching out into the European market as well. The biggest thing for us is to keep our eye on congestion rates at Boston and Providence. That would be something that we need to keep our thumb on that, because that might mean that there's more infiltration down here into other airports. On a regional outlook, regional aviation, the vast majority of the large carriers are starting to reduce their regional fleets. So if they had a huge number of regional fleets, we're seeing about a 40% decline in 2019, and they're continuing in that manner. Most of the major airlines are going towards larger aircraft fleets. They're moving towards larger aircraft fleets. All of them at this meeting provided a chart of the aircraft that they're going to discontinue and the aircraft that they're going to bring on. They're all wide body or bigger aircraft. Allegiant Airlines, within the next 5 years, they expect to expand into some smaller communities, which would be, they may look at Hyannis as an opportunity. I know that they have looked at us in the past, so it's just a matter of having those conversations with them and keeping that moving forward. Then Southwest Airlines, they will be adding new and increased air service, and they will be focusing on short haul point-to-point routes. That's another airline for us just to pay attention to and watch. United Airlines, they are increasing the size of their aircraft, but the thing to watch with them is their relationship with Archer and Electric Aviation, and we hope that that will prove to be something that's fruitful for this airport as we transition to that. The airport will host the roundtable in May of 2024. Again, it gives us the ability to showcase airlines, what we have to offer. It gives us a chance to work with our local community and the chamber to identify what the needs are on Cape Cod for flight services to and from Cape Cod. So we'll be working, I've already reached out to the Chamber of Commerce to start planning for that event. May be the beginning of May, so it wouldn't be quite into wedding season yet, but we do have to start planning early. That would be held, most likely it would be held at one of the hotels or conference areas, yeah. So
And you said it was only 50 there? Is that by
50.
invitation, or is that the first 50 that showed
So
up?
the first 50 that signed
Signed
up.
up.
Yeah. So, any comments or questions on the roundtable?
Well, today, United Airlines placed an order with Boeing for 100 787s.
Dreamliners.
And a option to purchase another 100 afterwards, so that starts to support what you were talking about. Just a number of the many challenges facing the whole transportation industry. Because what do you do if you're not living near an airport that can support a 787?
Right.
And there aren't that many places around that can support a 787. So how do you get to the airport, which gets to the discussions that you've been involved in lately?
Right.
Keep in mind, though, that the industry has gone through this cycle before.
Yeah.
I remember back in the 70s and the 80s, it was 747s, DC-10s, L-1011s. All the airlines went to jumbo jets until it became cost prohibitive to continue to operate that way because they weren't filling all the seats.
Yeah.
And so they dumped their jumbos and went to mid-range aircraft like 737s, and then Airbus got into the market. So we may see this trend right now, but it may reverse too in a couple of years. So you have to keep an eye on tactically what's really happening.
I think that's interesting. If you look at if you can go back to the end of World War II, and you look at the population of pilots and technicians, and it actually, since then, it's operated on a bit of a sine wave, where you've got an extreme shortage of pilots and technicians, and then all of a sudden it kind of backfills and it gets up. And then something changes the market, goes back. It's since I used to be in that school business and we were training, you could track it, and it's really been an interesting, and as far as pilots are concerned, well, the 787, that's a long haul airplane. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just for the really long routes.
That's
It's
not
interesting
for us.
that United just decided to go that route, because for a while that airplane was kind of off the market. But I'll just ingest here that as far as the pilot side of things, one of our former commissioners, Zach Lazinski, who has been a pilot, a flight instructor, executive pilot, et cetera, has recently been picked up by JetBlue.
Oh, good for him.
And he is, as latest I heard, he was in training to fly for JetBlue.
Good.
So, good for him.
Speaking of JetBlue, is there a reason that you can get, from a local perspective, is there a reason that we can't get a flight from here to parts of Florida, to Worcester now? I can fly from Worcester to Fort Lauderdale or West Palm if I wanted to. Is there a reason that we cannot get JetBlue to do that for us from here, seeing in fact we have that summer relationship with them? When
Yeah.
They come in from LaGuardia, then they.
I think it just logistically may not work because of the size of aircraft that they use here and the length of our runways. So they probably wouldn't have
They use
enough.
the Embraer, don't they?
They use the 190. So they use every inch of our runway for departure, and I just don't think that they would have enough fuel on board to get to the distances that you're talking about in Florida. They may be able to stop Washington DC
They
or
could
something.
get to DCA or BWI,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
which
refuel.
would be
Yeah,
very nice.
which they do now from the islands,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Nantucket, they go directly
I'm just saying, we have that relationship with
Yes.
them now. Is there a way that we can enhance that?
Yeah.
Because a lot of folks on the Cape always ask myself and different other people on this
We've
commission.
been talking
Why can't we
about
get,
this.
why can't we get the flower from Hyannis?
We've
We
been
asked
talk-
them-
We've been talking
Especially
about
now
this
we're in
since.
December.
Forever.
We do ask them every chance that we get about the opportunity. They've been here, this will be their 10th year, and they're finally adding one more flight.
I'm just wondering how we can entice them out, make it work that well, what is it that we can do? As a commission to
Yeah,
make them want to do it.
I think some of it is providing some additional funding for them. They do not do any type of marketing for this market. They only market select cities, Boston is one of them. So we have to do all our marketing. So that's one way that the commission would be able to do that, is to market their flights. We do that already. We have a marketing line item in our finances to be able to do that. I've already spoken to them, in fact, today, about an hour before I got up here, about when we're going to fully market this new route, which will be sometime in January when the seats become available. So we'll have a good marketing push there. Other airlines might look for other types of incentives. There are grants that you can go after with the FAA to entice an airport to be able to offer service, but it's subsidies that would be going to that airline to be able to offer the service.
Keep in mind that, flying from Worcester to Fort Lauderdale and a direct flight, it's one trip, right? And the airlines operate on a very narrow profit margin. So the idea of going from here to DCA or BWI and then continuing on, every minute that the airplane's on the ground, the airline's losing money.
Yep.
So you're adding 40 minutes to an hour to that segment, which would be profitable out of Worcester, but coming out of here, because we don't have the runway length, they would have to make that stop, it wouldn't make it profitable.
Okay.
We need to get a long runway.
We're looking at it. We're looking at it.
Just enough.
That's it.
That's it?
I don't have any other comments, I can do updates for you.
Oh, yeah, okay, here we go. You gotta stay in time. Okay, we don't have, in the month of, in this month, we don't have any special committees. Yarmouth Rep report, Dr. Marasco is not here, so I guess not. All right, moving into updates. Katie, move 'em.
Sure, this is the financial update review. This was provided to the finance subcommittee. It's as of November 23rd when we posted this. That is very hard to see, I apologize. In a
To
nutshell.
follow along with that,
Yeah.
are we gonna fix that for next time, so we can see it? I think it's the contrast in the colors that make it difficult.
Well, I think it's because it's
It's point
it's
size, too.
smaller and it's in this presentation format. I can bring it up in the Excel spreadsheet, which would be a lot bigger.
Well, I mean, like when you send it out, because I struggled to read this ahead of
Okay.
time.
Yeah, we can make changes.
Okay, thank you.
In a nutshell, we're doing well in regards to, let me actually just go to the next slide because that gives a text overview of where we are. So jet fuel sales, 81% of the anticipated revenue budget has already been collected in this fiscal year. We've already had to go back to town council just to make sure that we have enough funds available in our budget to cover our jet fuel purchases for resale. So that's already been taken care of. Good thing is car rental concessions, 81% of the anticipated revenue budget has been collected. We have a lot of off-street car rentals that take place outside of just the airlines that utilize this facility. So that helps with the rental car concessions and their sales. We continue to monitor our revenue generation to ensure that we continue to meet the budget with our various grants that we have through the federal government, CARES, CURSOR, and ARPA grants. And we are tracking well within our first 2 months of the budget. We're currently at a surplus of just over $600,000 in the budget. Again, noting the transfer of funds that we needed for jet fuel coverage. Overall, for the revenue side of things, for the 2023 budget summary, our top revenue producer is jet fuel, followed by land lease for non-aviation land leases. Grants that we are receiving from the federal government, various car rental, renewable energy credits, the solar array, the 20-acre solar array, and then land lease rental are our top 6. For expenses, the top 6 include our purchases for jet fuel resale, and then, of course, our salary and our wages for our staff. That includes retirement as well, and then our insurance that we need on the various pieces of property and assets, as well as getting into our airfield painting project year after year. So those are our top revenue and expenses, top 6. For jet fuel sales, if we just look at the month of November compared to last fiscal year, we're down by about 37%. But overall for the fiscal year, when you compare the 2 years, we're up just slightly on our jet fuel sales. For operations, for the month of October, that was the last month we had available for tracking. We're about 8% lower than we were previous fiscal year, and overall about 4% below fiscal year 2022. Projects underway for CARES Act. This is our grants that we have in place. We have CARES Act, which we used for operating budget. That was the $17.9 million grant that we received. Expiration date is June 24 of 2024. We have been able to use those funds well in terms of providing funding for our operating budget, but also for these projects that normally wouldn't get funded through the federal government, such as the Mary Dunway project, the airport operations remodel, and the T-hangar replacement. Our CURSA grant has been used in its entirety. The expiration date for that was April 2024. We've already closed out that grant. It was just over $1 million, and we used it for operating budget, mainly for jet fuel purposes. For the ARPA and bill grants, we have one, the bill grant, just so you're aware, it's a 5-year annual program, so it will be announced the funding that will become available to us within each year. So for this first year, it was just over $1 million, it's $1,015,000. And then next year it's about the same, just off by about $200. So the bill grant can be used for various projects within the terminal building and the tower, and we've placed it on our CIP to be able to use it for renovations to this existing facility, so that we can make sure, for instance, our HVAC is working well in a salt air environment. We've seen some degradation of those systems, so we want to be able to replace them before we're forced to replace them. And then the ARPA grant, we can also use that for various projects, including some of those that are on our CIP for development grants, either whether it's in the terminal or the facilities that we need on the airfield. And that's just where we are on our CARES Act grant, just to tell you where the dollars amount. Here are the projects on this side. I know it's hard to see in this presentation, but you do have the spreadsheets that we've already provided to you, and then this is our CURSA Act funds, which has been closed out. Any questions or comments on the finances?
Why was the aviation fuel sales down 37%? Do we know?
It was just for that month, it was down 37%. We just didn't have as many sales as we did when we compared it to the previous
So
month.
I'm just wondering, you know,
Well,
we've had so much, you know, jet aviation here, it seemed because of COVID. And is that trend, you know,
I
going
think we're
away from
starting
us?
to see it come back to a normalization.
Yeah.
We saw a big uptick over the past 2 years.
And then my other comment is I can't help myself comment, which is related to, when we look at our overall numbers, when we look at the jet fuel sales and the cost of jet fuel, it really distorts all the other numbers that we look at. And it just says to me, we have two businesses, one being the sale of jet fuel and the other being aviation. And as a long-term goal, I think we need to look at ways of looking at the numbers a little differently so we can make sure we have the right focus.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like we're a gas station. That's really what it comes down to, when you look at the numbers.
Yeah.
I've often had this discussion with other folks.
But if you
It's-
don't
If you
have jet fuel, they
we're
won't
out of luck
come.
too, I understand. So it's that balance, but.
We're a gas station for things to
I think we have to look at it this way. We want to make sure that, and Norm, I appreciate your concerns about how we track the jet fuel, but we always want to have a number of different elements that we're involved in, which is why we transitioned to having more non-aviation type revenue sources coming into the airport. So if we saw a downturn in aviation, then we would still have something that's covering the budget. So there's a number of different things. For jet fuel being the highest one, I'd like to see a little bit more of a normalization where we're bringing in some other type of revenue that offsets that a little bit. Because we'll see this go down. We'll see jet fuel sales go down, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't want to imply that we shouldn't be in the jet fuel business. I'm just think that my knee-jerk reaction to it is that it's very complicated, and I want to make sure we're able to have the right focus on it to make sure that we're making use of all the opportunities that we have there, and that it can get distorted when we just look at big numbers up at the top like that. And every once in a while, I think it makes sense to look under the tent, not necessarily every month, but periodically. And that's my whole point of view on it.
Okay, thank you.
I had a career where people were always asking me that question, so now I'm in the position of being able to ask it.
Take advantage of it.
Okay.
Katie?
Yes.
And I'm still learning, so forgive me if some of these questions sound dumb, but our fiscal year is July to June?
Yes.
Okay, and in the budget, when we say budget versus actual, the budget is what we have planned for the entire fiscal year, and the actual is year to date?
Right.
Okay.
Right, so when I provide you the update for, I stamp the day, November 23rd, then that's where we are as of
Yes,
December.
right.
Yes.
Right, because when I first looked at it, it was like, oh, we were way under plan here.
Yeah,
But,
no,
thank you.
you're welcome. All right. Moving on to updates, we've already went over a little bit of electric aviation and the business plan, so I'll skip over that. I have a list of what we will most likely see for the next upcoming meetings in January and February. And then I'd like Chris to do an update on the CARES Act projects and where we are. So Chris, do you want me to bring up the presentation that has some pictures?
Yeah, that's the best way to do
All
it.
right.
I've given this presentation to both the subcommittees, so this is just, we'll recap it. Do you want to talk on the EA at all?
Sure, so if you go to the next slide real quick, those are the four that we're gonna talk about. The airport master plan update, it says airport master plan update, should say EA master update. For the public meeting took place on October 27th. We had a good number of stakeholders and community members that attended that first meeting. We had a couple of comments from them in terms of audio-visual and some modifications that we can make for a larger public audience. We've posted the public meeting with the help of downtown of Barnstable. We've posted a video of the public meeting, so any of the comments or questions can be viewed there. We also posted the presentation that was offered at that meeting, so that you can take a look at what topics we covered. The next meeting opportunity will be in January, and we'll be meeting with our first series of evaluators of our environmental assessment. The first one is with Massachusetts, the MIPA office, and that will take place in January. And we have a meeting in the morning, midday with them, and then later on in the evening we'll have a public meeting. But the public is welcome to come to both of those. It's a MIPA consultation meeting. It's the opportunity for them to look at what's been presented and to provide feedback as to any other scopes of work that we should look into, any other developments that we should look at, or any other analyses that they feel that we should incorporate in the EA. So we're working through that process. Thanks. Oh, I have it there, sorry. I spoke all about that, and there it is. So we've actually changed the second public meeting. It's actually going to be February 13th. I don't think anybody wants to come here on Valentine's Day. And then the MIPA consultation has been moved to January. I asked them to move it to January because it was scheduled to be in December, but I don't think it's appropriate during the holiday season to have a public meeting that maybe people are vacationing or visiting their families. So we moved it to January just to make sure that we get the ultimate amount, the public present at that meeting and give them a better opportunity than doing it, crushing it in between holidays. So that's why we've changed it.
Point of clarification, Mr. Vansky, is there a particular date in January yet?
Yes, it's on our website. It is, I'll have to look for you, I'll get it for you. I'll look real quick. I want to say, well, I don't know it off the top of my head, so I'll get it for you. But in any event, everything's posted on our website, so we have on the EA website all of those dates that are posted, so you can take a look at that as well. What is it?
January 5th.
January 5th.
5th?
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. So we'll go over a few projects. The first one, the most complete project so far, is the Marydon Extension project. If you guys have had the opportunity to drive down there, we're definitely making progress. I'd say it's about 95% complete. We're waiting on a few long lead items for this, for the pump station, but the fence, the road, the grass even grew. So it was like the time that we put the seed down couldn't have been better. So visually it looks much different down there than what you guys remember. So that's how we look down there. So we have the roadway, the signage, excuse me, the roadway and the fences, and then the new sign that we talked about here. At night, it does light up pretty nice. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see that, but very happy with how that turned out. This next project is the Ops building and ARF rehab building, rehab project, excuse me. Demolition is well underway. What you don't see here, there's an update. All the interior walls are now down and all that block is out of the building. So it's one open space right now. So it's moving along. It was about 4 weeks behind schedule. I put that number about 3.5 weeks behind schedule. We're moving the right direction there. And so a very exciting project. It's moving along.
Chris, why was it behind schedule?
What's that?
Why was it behind schedule?
Just coming out the gate, we hit some snags and some RFIs, but to clarify a few things with design, and then just getting the ball rolling and getting people on site. It took some delays, but I think by running the whole schedule of the project, we'll be able to make up that time pretty quickly.
Nothing major.
Nothing major, no. The T-hanger replacement side of this project, the T-hanger, it's obviously gone, all been hauled off. All the footings have now been placed. And we also have done the water taps now have been done, so we access through the fence here, connected to the main water line. And so the next step there is going to put in an oil water separator. So a few more things to do on that side of it. And we're tracking well with this. We're on schedule with this side of the project. And these are the big ones here. Upcoming projects, 624 is slated to start end of March. We'll get that moving and then we'll go into the EMAS project. We have had some of the EMAS blocks have already been made. So that's one of the first steps on actually constructing that project. And we do have some material for 624 on site. So we're starting to get these projects moving. So it's very exciting. Again, we'll do end of March, this project will start. And then about a month or so later, maybe 2, we'll get into EMAS. EMAS will finish, and then we'll finish the runway. Kind of that's how it'll flow. And then we should be wrapped up with everything end of September, beginning of October at the latest, what we're hoping for on that.
Chris, do we know when the original EMAS was put in?
Yep. 2003.
It was
It was the
first
first generation
generation.
EMAS, well past its service life at this point.
Yeah. What is the service cycle? Do you know?
10 years.
10
So it's
years.
20 years?
10.
10 years?
Yeah,
Wow.
And
Thank you.
there's only one company that does this,
yes.
they went up, that's the business to be in.
I think they do.
They have the material, they do the installation, it's
They don't do the installation, they're,
only subcontractor.
that Lawrence Lynch, who won the
Lynch.
bid, will be installing the blocks, but they specify they have somebody, they make the blocks and then they have somebody on hand to make sure that the blocks are installed appropriately.
Amazing.
Same company does arresting gear across runways too, so they have a good market.
They still do.
So, any questions on those projects? I know I went pretty quickly, but I know we've talked in detail on these, on the subcommittees, so.
That's good.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the only other items I had on here, we are moving forward with some procurement items. 3-year, 1-year on-call, we're gonna do 1 year
Yes, ma'am.
for painting. For every year, we have to paint our surfaces, runways, taxiways, apron areas, so we'll be going forward with that. Cafe, commercial kitchen, we've talked to the finance subcommittee about probably going after something, after the first of the year on that piece. Communications manager and airline consultant, those are advancing, and I'm just working with the procurement officer to get those posted. The town budget is underway. We've already submitted the CIP to the town and have had some of our initial meetings, and the budget is under development now. That will be submitted at the end of this month and then bring it forward to the full commission for the finance committee and full commission for approval. I already spoke about the environmental assessment, PFAS, just we've updated our website to include that now, and we're working with our stakeholders to wrap that up and come up with a final mitigation plan for that process. So we're working on that. I've already spoken about rebranding and past events. I just list them for you there. And then the dates to remember, we spoke about September dates, the 22nd and the 23rd for upcoming big events, and then a night in the terminal, Scout Sleepover will happen in March.
Quick question on the rebranding and the signs, or the Rotary sign, is that gonna be moved to the east before the,
We're gonna look at where it should sit.
ahead of
rather-
that in-ramp?
We're just gonna look at, as to where it should be sited on that mount. Not sure if that's going to be the exact location that we'll place it in, but we just need to do some visual sighting to see what makes sense.
Okay. Anybody else, comments? So dates to remember, okay, we're down. Announcements, commissioners' comments. It's the end of the calendar year, folks. Anybody here on the bench like to say anything as we wrap this up?
Katie sent out an email this afternoon on service awards.
Mhm.
And we have some impressive longevity in there, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you for acknowledging them.
Yeah.
To acknowledge them themselves.
No, I think it's great that we have a number of our employees that have been long-term employees that are at this airport. I believe the longest standing employee is 42 years in the operations department. He's still there, he loves his job, comes in every day.
That's great.
So it's good to have that history of some of these folks that are here, they know what's happening at the airport, and they're dedicated to the facility, which is good. Yeah, we appreciate that for sure.
Any other
Absolutely.
comments? John, you got anything?
I would just comment on the overall operation, it's been another good year, calendar year, I would say, fiscal year wise too, which will end on June 30th, as we go into next fiscal year 23. But no, I think it's been a good year, with everything that's been ongoing between pandemic, between planning, between, well, like I see the Kmart mall get pushed a little bit quicker.
Yes.
A lot of commentary on that one in the town, but otherwise I think it's been good.
Thank you.
Brad,
Good team.
you got anything you want to add, Brad?
No, I'm all
Jake?
set. Thank you.
Mark, you talk. Joe?
I'm good.
Norm? Okay, I got a few. Oh, you want to go?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I got a couple of things here. Talking about our staff, Anybody that walked in, you saw the sleigh out there, that's home built by a couple of our guys here, and it
Right,
turned out
Ken
really
Fred,
nice.
yeah.
How did we do on the Toys for Tots there?
I don't know exactly how many toys were collected, but it was pretty full. We collect a lot. In fact, we've had some people bring in toys after the fact, so we're just collecting them and bringing them to the collection site, which is great, but it was good participation by our
Well,
team.
it's a great piece of equipment, and let's cherish and take good care of it.
I agree. They already have plans on how to make it better for next year.
Yeah. I mentioned Zach Lazinski, the hat. For those in the community, if you recall, the President of the United States spends some time annually on Nantucket, and this airport provided a certain amount of support for that mission. You might have seen a C-130 come in and out, a couple of tilt rotors, and Marine One. They were the tilt rotors and the helicopter, a Black Hawk. They were involved with HMX-1, which is the presidential, and I managed to visit them, got myself a hat, which I'm very proud of. But the thing that's really interesting when you meet these young Marines, they're your grandkids.
That's how young they are.
They are really young. And they are squared away, proud, really terrific Marines and young soldiers and airmen. Boy, I'll tell you, it's encouraging. A friend of mine, not a close friend, but a guy that I've known since the mid-'80s and had an opportunity to spend a good deal of time with, a true national hero, a guy named Colonel Joe Kittinger. He was a test pilot, a fighter pilot. He did a tremendous amount of testing in the pre-true astronaut era, doing things to see if the human body can survive some of the stuff that was going to come when they started riding rockets. And he got shot down. He was a POW. This was after he did a lot of that stuff. He had a couple of missions over Vietnam. He was a POW in Vietnam. He's a championship balloon racer. He retired something like the Gordon Bennett balloon race all over because he kept winning it. He just loved to fly. I got some opportunity to fly with him around Orlando in a vintage biplane. He just loved to barnstorm. But he died last Friday at 94. But the thing that he was absolutely the thing he was always, he jumped out of a helium balloon at something, 20 miles above the Earth. And this was just to determine, can a human being survive something like this? The book was called The Long, Lonely Leap, but he made a couple of jumps, and it was his 102,800 feet,
Wow.
19 miles, free falling because of the lack of air density. Without the benefit of an aircraft, he broke the sound barrier.
Wow.
And he survived it. He did some other stuff. And last Friday, a true national hero, a guy that I looked up to. I had the good fortune to spend a reasonable amount of time with him. And as they say in aircraft aviation terms, he went west last Friday, and he will be deeply, I mean, you talk about hero, there you are. And so rest in peace, Joe. Unbelievable.
We're losing a lot of them.
Yep. He, crazy guy, but was wonderful. Anybody else? I thank everybody for this, everything we've been able to accomplish. Chris, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Mark, welcome aboard. And looking ahead, we're on the right track. We've got a good team. And I just thank everybody for everybody in the community, everybody around, all that you helped with. Comments, criticism, constructive criticism, compliments. We love it. So anybody else, I'll wish you all the best for the holidays. Happy, and look forward to a good new year. And I'll entertain
Make a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? No. We adjourned at 17:17.